National Marine High Risk Site Surveillance Program. I'd just like to start off by acknowledging MPI or Biosecurity New Zealand as our long-term partners in this. They've been a fantastic team to work with, particularly our operational liaison, Abraham Greycott, Laura Nichols and Mike Taylor, a fantastic team to work with. So I'd like to thank them for their trust over the many years. Also our previous operational liaisons such as Tim Riding, who might be listening into this. He's now based in Nelson. So this is a program which is a targeted surveillance program. It's been running since 2002 when we first started off with 8 high-risk locations around New Zealand. We've now morphed it into 12 high-risk sites around the country. So it's funded by Biosecurity New Zealand through MPI, and it's conducted on behalf of MPI by Earth Sciences New Zealand. And we've got 12 high-risk sites that we surveil twice a year biannually, so nominally a winter survey season and a summer survey season, ranging from Opu in the Bay of Islands in the far north all the way down to Bluff Harbour, Awarua in the far south. The primary objective for this program is the early detection of 5 high-risk marine species, the Northern Pacific sea star, European green crab, the aquarium weed, which is Calopa taxifolia, which is different, as noted before by Irene, to Calopa brachypus and parvifolia. Similar species though. Aquarium weed was predicted to be the first one to potentially land because it is aquarium traded species, as opposed to the other 2 species which normally aren't. The Chinese mitten crab and also the Asian clam. And these are all species which have not yet been detected in our waters, and we don't want them to be either. 3 of those species are across the ditch in Australia, and that's the Northern Pacific sea star, European green crab, and Calopa taxifolia. So they are knocking on the door potentially, and so they are realistic invasion risks. The secondary objectives to the program are the detection of new incursions to New Zealand of New Zealand species. They can be native species or they can be invasive species from overseas. We're also looking at detection incursions of species which are already established in our waters. So these are our secondary target sort of species. And we have the Asian date mussel, Archaeotula senhausia, the Australian droplet tunicate, Eudostoma elongatum, Mediterranean penguin, which most of you are familiar with, Spelanzani, and club tunicate Styloclava, which again, many of you will be familiar with. So we're basically looking for anything and everything. The sampling techniques that we use are quite tried and true and tested, and quite simple and cost-effective techniques. And the first of these are benthic sleeve toes along the seafloor using a small sled that sort of collects all manner of materials from the seafloor. The crab condo traps, these are unbaited habitat traps which are targeted at the Chinese mitten crab, which its herbivorous juveniles don't get attracted to normal baits. And we've got crab box traps, which are quite standard traps, which catch a whole range of different sort of fish species, crabfish, and starfish species as well. Diver searches, which Una and Irene sort of alluded to, and the commercial boys will also sort of do. A lot of these port environments are pretty manky port environments to dive in, but diver searches are a really effective technique at picking up new species. And also then shore searching along the intertidal and shallow subtidal regions. The search effort that we put into each sort of high-risk site has been dictated by different sort of modelling techniques that we've used from the start in surveillance designs or survey designs. We look at the habitat suitability and the environmental tolerances of these organisms that we're looking at for where best to sort of target the search effort. We'll look at the hydrodynamic modelling to predict where larval dispersal may go from likely points of introduction. And we also look at stochastic scenario tree modelling to optimise the sampling effort. So just an example here with the Nelson crab trapping effort. On the image to the right there, you can sort of see that a lot of the crab traps are basically sort of pre-allocated to around the port and marina environments, and then dispersed out for where we expect those larvae to basically disperse out to and currents take them away from. Search effort, usually it's about 243 sampling sites per high-risk site. That search effort is doubled up in Auckland because it's such a huge harbour in the Waitemata. So say, for example, we put out 8 crab condo lines, 80 box traps, 100 benthic sleeve toes, which are 100 metres in length. Diver searches, 30 of those, and shore searches, 25 search locations within each high-risk site. In terms of what we turn up, specimens in the field, where we can, we identify both native species and non-Indigenous species in the field. And the field team's been doing this since 2002, many of us, so we're quite experienced in terms of what to look out for and quite skilled at that sort of thing. But we will come across things that we don't know. And where we don't know something, we suspect it's new to New Zealand or it's a range extension or a new incursion to a new area, then we need to tag and bag and take that sort of sample. Those samples then get taken off and delivered to the Marine Invasive Taxonomic Service based in Wellington, and that's a joint collaboration between MPI and Earth Sciences New Zealand. So all those specimens go into this. MPI funds the identification of that. They get sent off to various taxonomic experts either within New Zealand or around the world. They then get identified, and that specimen is then retained within our national invertebrate collection for posterity. So if we ever have to go back and re-examine something through sort of genetics or the taxonomy of it, we can easily sort of do that. And so that's a fantastic sort of collaboration which we've got going. Now, in terms of survey results to date, as of the last sort of financial year, since our beginning in 2002, we've completed over 420 surveys throughout the country. It's close to 200,000 sampling locations. In that time, we've detected one primary target species. At the time, it was a primary target species, which is the Mediterranean fanworm, and that was first detected in Littleton Harbour, Whakaropo, in 2008. That's now moved to our secondary sub-target list. We've detected 24 new to New Zealand non-Indigenous species. Two examples, the light bulb Ascidian down the bottom left there, Clavolina lepatiformis, which was actually Nelson for the first time. The red alga Pachymeneopsis lanceolata, which was Littleton Harbour, Whakaropo, for the first time for our ECAN people. We've also had over 268 range extensions within the country over this sort of time. Two examples, the Asian paddle crab, Charybdis japonica, and the oyster blenny, Amobranchus anoleus. In terms of survey results, Richard actually stole my thunder on some of this. Good on you. So in terms of last survey sort of year, we had one new to New Zealand algal species, which is Pterathamnion yezuense, which was found in the Nelson Marina, right by the public ramp there. That has actually persisted through to this current winter season too, so it has established fully within the marina, but it's been evaluated as being relatively low risk. We've also had 7 range extensions for the previous year, and the first of those was the alga Bonomysonia hamifera up in Opua, the alga Striaria attenuata down in Bluff Harbour, Aroa, the colonial Ascidian, which Richard showed a photo of before, Lysiclinum perforatum in Wellington Harbour. That's one which we're actually finding spreading quite rapidly around the country too. Styla, the Ascidian Styla canopus, which is a solitary Ascidian, looks quite like Styla clava, but no stalk, and that was detected in Tauranga Harbour. We had the bryozoan Nevianapora pulcherriman, which is that top right-hand image there. It's actually quite a cute little hard bryozoan. That was detected as a range extension in Littleton Harbour, Whakaropo. And then also the Australian dog whelk, or the gastropod Tritia burkhardi, which was detected in both Napier and also in Nelson Harbour. And Nelson was the first detection within the South Island. So this is a species which is spreading quite quickly. And I'm not dealing drugs, but that's actually just, if you do want to look, it's quite a small gastropod, but we expect that one to jump quite readily throughout many of the ports now, because it's easily transported within sort of sediments, you know, sort of anchors that gets all walled up, or sort of dredges that are operating. If you do want to look at some shells, got some shells with me. Now, all this data from the National Marine High-Risk Site Surveillance Program goes into our Marine Biosecurity Porthole, which is again a collaboration between Earth Sciences New Zealand and MPI. So all of our data go into this, and it's basically freely accessible. So all our survey detection results throughout the country, that's all sort of updated annually following our annual sort of surveys, and that's freely available. That also encompasses data from the port biological baseline surveys, which is a whole range of surveys that we took to on behalf of the MPI throughout the country in the early 2000s to establish what species we have here in the ports to begin with, and that was both native and non-Indigenous species. And anything else that sort of comes in from stakeholders such as yourselves or members of the public, which gets sort of put through the 0800 pest line, which then gets sent through to MITS to be positively identified, and any other verified observations of marine non-indigenous species within the country. So I'll recommend go have a look at that resource. It's a great source of data. And I understand too that MPI is actually developing a new initiative where it's going to take data from sources such as this and then sort of encompass it into a whole range of different, so not just marine, but sucking up freshwater terrestrial pest species. So there's one go-to shop rather than disparate sort of sources of information. So it'd be great to see that coming out. As well as those established relatively sort of simple sort of search techniques, we're also investigating other sort of more, shall we say, sensitive sort of techniques and innovative techniques. And the first of those, which actually Deb is actually, my colleague's actually going to talk to in more detail, is looking at sort of remotely operated vehicles within our sort of ports and marinas and looking at sort of geolocation data and combining it with AI detection of pest species. So we can actually sort of, sort of automate a lot of that detection within our marinas and ports. We're also looking at molecular methods such as the eDNA sensitive sort of methods, which Cawthron's been doing a whole swag of great research into as well. And so we're also sort of conducting that and sort of seeing whether we'd actually sort of incorporate that into the program going forwards. But I'll leave Deb to talk about that a little bit later. Before we just take some part-I questions, I also just like to acknowledge you as stakeholders and partners in this. When we conduct this program, we often sort of touch base with you, and actually sometimes some of you as stakeholders come out and work with us on the surveys as well. So I'd just like to acknowledge that this work does not occur without your permission and your support. So I'd just like to acknowledge that as well. So time for any part-I questions. It's got to be one. Yes, Una.
Do you think there's a way of streamlining like the biosecurity portal and MVP so that the data can be across both? So a lot of councils use MVP and it's really valuable to just.
Yes. Who actually sort of does it and how it gets done? I think yes, because we sort of see that with, they all sort of have great data in them, but how do we sort of, sort of do that sort of thing? So we would like to explore that more because we think it should be able to be done. And also sort of too, a lot of the sort of the data that sort of like, for example, councils hold on pest detections to how we can get those and actually sort of have them validated, verified, and actually sort of incorporated sort of too, so that we can really sort of get a one-stop shop. Yeah. That was in Te Yeah, so I mean, it's a really cute little bryozoan thing, but that was first detected in Waitemata. And we expect that one to sort of jump as well. And again, it's not a high risk species. Yeah.
These dog wells, they so they're spreading quite rapidly. What's the impact of these ones?
There are a lot of sort of scavenging sort of gastropods sort of things, so it's not a lot of predation that goes with them. They'll scavenge. They can occur in quite high density, which is the concern with them. But they haven't been sort of evaluated to be as a high impact species. But they do translocate quite easily.
So they'll outcompete our native ones, or?
Yeah, I think there's it's out competing the other smaller gastropods potentially, and I think there will be some risk of predation, even though they're generally sort of scavengers. Things can move to predation.
Yeah, Chris, I just wanted to acknowledge the huge importance of this work as far as early detection of new pests that we should be concerned about. And I guess just wondering how I just want to make that call really, if it is something new to say like Nelson, and just how concerned we should be about it, or how likely it is to become a future headache that we really need to get on to as early as possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of the factors, and somebody from MPI, I mean, Jen, Irene may sort of want to comment on this sort of too. When we get a first detection, or particularly with a new sort of species that gets put through the taxonomy expert, who does a quick literature search and gives their considered expert opinion, whether it's potentially a risk species. That also gets then sort of investigated by the incursion investigators at the MPI. So they will also make a judgment, consider judgment call on likely impacts. That gets notified to you guys, quite quickly sort of too, particularly whether it's a concern or not.
I guess that ongoing surveillance picks up like the well, just whether it's been established or is established on term.
Yeah.
How it's going. Thanks.
And are those assessments pretty much about invasion history elsewhere? So that would be the main informant at the start, and then you guys are keeping an eye on it. So if it starts behaving differently or expanding,
Yeah, until you sort of get to a degree like you are with, so for example, Cowlooper, we're actually doing active investigations, trying to determine what the actual sort of, sort of ecosystem impacts are to inform those actions going forward as well.
Thanks, Chris.